Verizon to T-Mobile to AT&T, probably the usuals.
So they're not
They
telling
just-
you.
They're the company that does the siting and location and ultimately, I think, the installation of these things, so. But from what little I know of the statutes, I do know that all it really gives the municipality the ability to do is to set like a maximum fee. And I remember something out of it that says you can't make them get a permit for just one pole at a time. They're allowed to like bundle up to 25 or 50 under one permit. That's
Can
how
you
many
charge a
these-
lease for that pole?
That remains to be seen. I don't know. I'm not an encroachment expert, so
Yeah.
that's where we got to get the lawyer and involved.
I imagine that maybe they're trying to avoid paying a lease to Duke or want somebody else, and so maybe if they thought that they had to pay a lease, not that that matters to us, what
Sure.
matters to us is they don't do that. But maybe if we could do that, then we could make it just as high as Duke Power would, and that would make them maybe want to go ahead and put it on a existing pole.
Well, I remember another thing from the statute that says you can't enact a moratorium to like stop this thing temporarily while you sort things out. But there is something I remember reading that says once they apply for a permit, I have 45 days to either approve it or deny it. So if things are uncertain, I will take every bit of time that I have to.
So basically, you can deny it, and then they won't have nothing to stand on.
Well, I could deny it. They're very quickly going to come back with lawyers that say, why are you denying this? And you probably have no legal ground. And likely our attorney would say you're probably going to have to issue it.
And I'll just add just one quick, so, and Eric did a good job of giving an overview of the whole kind of scenario where we stand, but I contacted the League of Municipalities, and we tried to kind of maybe stand on one of the definitions in there and co-locate, because co-locate has kind of a connotation, you're putting it onto another facility or co-locating, and so we tried to press that, and I talked to the Deputy General Counsel for the League of Municipalities, and his interpretation is, no, that would include new facilities as well. And he kind of gave us the advice that if this goes in, to try and, work with the community, work with the cell phone company to, you either steer them away or minimize the impact, those kinds of things, because we are dealing with the difficult situation that general statute allows for it in that area.
Yeah, but that word "or" is a big word, so it doesn't mean that it can't be put on a utility pole somewhere. So if it
No,
says
it can.
this or that.
Yeah, what we were trying to find a way that it would not be allowed was looking at that definition of co-locate, because a lot of within that speaks to, putting it, on another utility pole, where there's other above-ground utilities, and in this instance, at least in Windsor Forest, everything's underground. And maybe there could be, if they're looking, we don't, at this point, we don't know for sure that they want to do some type of pole and antenna facility. There's a possibility they could look at the neighborhood and not put anything in. They could just do underground cabling or
Optic fiber.
Putting fiber in the ground. Obviously, that's got to come out somewhere, and it's going to go onto a tower somewhere. So at this point, we need to hear from them and also share our concerns that, hey, this is a neighborhood where all the utilities are underground. It is not an ideal place to put above-ground facilities for a bunch of reasons.
Well, any neighborhood, I mean.
Yeah, right, well, yeah,
I mean,
in
it's my
particular, any
opinion. Yeah.
residential, let's just say, or subdivision type of neighborhood.
Would it help, since it was written in legislation in 2017, would it help to reach out to a couple legislators and see
Yeah.
the wording, or maybe even
Sure. I
maybe
mean, it
amend
doesn't-
some of the stuff?
It doesn't hurt, but, it went through because of a really strong lobby And the lobby's pushing out there that we're all using so much data that they're struggling to find locations to put facilities to meet the data demand. But to answer your question, yeah, it does not hurt to go and lobby. The league lobbies well on this, but sometimes some of these bills get through that, you know, we don't like those bills. We sometimes call them bad bills. But they have a very strong lobby at the General Assembly. But yeah, it helps, I mean, for everybody to let your legislators know the impact of this.
Can the league lobby on our behalf? And
Oh, yes.
one other question.
Yeah. They
Said
and they
look-
do.
Good, thank you. You said they were looking at 11 different locations. Are they looking to put 11 different facilities or a lesser number?
I'm not sure. Again, it was very vague information. And again, the only specifics that I know of because of the furor that understandably arose over was the Windsor Forest location. And I'm not even clear on whether they were just looking at one location within Windsor Forest or multiple.
Sure,
We're going to learn
I
a
get
lot
it.
more when we first sit down with them. So, I promise more information is coming. The main thing tonight is that I wanted to stress that it's like I'm 99.8% sure they're not just going to roll up in the neighborhood and start planting holes in the ground, which I think was some of the big fear last week because there was a ticket generated that you could see in their system or something that made it look like something was happening the week of August 3rd and 10th. And as I understand it, as I look closer at it, I think that's just design and locating utilities.
Sure.
I'll give you more information on that.
I mean, I think Eric and I at least were encouraged that they did respond now, and want to meet quickly and want to hear our feedback, input on this. And I know Eric shared contact information with everybody here, and anybody who's not here, we can do that. But, I mean, it really behooves them to be sensitive to this, because do you want to be putting facilities up where no one wants them, type of thing?
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, we'll continue to definitely monitor this and.
When you
follow
talk
up
to
with
them, can you ask them what these things look like? How big are the antenna systems that are going on it? And I think it's worthwhile to ask who's the driver here? I know they're the contractor, but somebody's got to be paying these guys to do this. It would help if we at least
Another
knew
company.
who was doing it. Is it AT&T or is it somebody else?
You would think they'd be able to put on the actual cell phone tower itself, you know, away from the neighborhoods.
I mean, I've seen, I don't know the specific proposal yet, but I mean, I've seen, you know, hypothetical renderings on their Crown Castle website. I mean, some of them, you know, I mean, they all generally, 40-ish feet tall. Have a look at some of the old school, you know, the Duke power poles or the old school AT&T phone poles. They're a little bit more, some of them are more sleek and modern looking, but not that helps seeing that area of underground utilities. Some of them were quite attractive and would be good for like Highway 25. You know, they could have easily been, we
Yeah.
could put our decorative posts up on our streetscape enhancement project. I mean, they could have, you know, blended in on the Highway 25 corridor. But anyway, we'll be finding out more. But I know nothing's that attractive at 40 feet tall, I do recognize.
Yeah.
You know,
All right, any other questions or comments from council? All righty, well, Eric and Mark and the rest of the staff, I want to thank you all for all your work with that and the community for your engagement. I think it helps, truly. All righty, moving on to public comment. And if you don't want to speak, just let me know as I go down this list. And I'll also open it up if anybody else wants to speak after I finish this list. So first we have Mr. Mark Washburn. And sir, just state your name, your address, and then your 3 minutes will begin when the clerk is ready.
My name is Mark Washburn. I live at 307 Mountain Alder Lane, and we've been there for 19 years. When I first heard about this, I was basically appalled. I'm going to be very direct with you as to what I'm thinking about this whole thing. If I were to ask any one of you guys here in this panel, would you mind if Crown comes up to you and asks you, can you put a cell tower at the end of your driveway? That's what they've done with basically what they're asking us is At the end of my driveway, they want to put a cell tower, which is, like I said, ridiculous, appalling, stupid. You know, it doesn't make any sense. And there's a few reasons why I wanted to point out, as I did on LOS when I was interviewed. Safety-wise, I'm concerned. I used to be an engineer, and we kind of studied electromagnetic waves, which is coming off this cell tower. Obviously, something's coming off it that you can't see, because that's what is transferring communications. To think that those electromagnetic waves are impinging, that'd be the scientific word, impinging on my house, on the Buckinghams right across the street from me. All the neighbors, as their kids are running up and down the street, they're being exposed to these waves. I don't know the safety factor, but it can't be good. I'm also concerned about the aesthetics. We have a beautiful neighborhood. If anybody has driven through Windsor Forest and you see a cell tower, you're saying, what is this? This has nothing to do with Windsor Forest or the neighborhood at all. It's ugly. As I said on LOS, you might as well take 4 or 5 dumpsters and stick them at the end of my driveway and say, is it a problem? Does it make my house look bad? And the answer, of course, is yes. You know, so this will devalue my house as well as all the houses in the area because of this cell tower coming in. And so there was something else I had in mind, but at the same time, those are my leading reasons why I think that this is just a bad idea. And there's something behind it, that they want to be close to a group of people to get the right communication signal, that the people can receive it on their phones. I don't know what the reason is, but a tower right in the neighborhood is beyond crazy. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments. All righty, next we have signed up Mr. David Romanek. I apologize if I said your last name wrong. And just say your name and your address, and then your 3 minutes will begin when the clerk is ready.
My name is David Romanach. I'm at 226 Windsor Forest Circle. And thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts today with this body and my community. One of my concerns is, besides everything that's been said already, and I appreciate the consideration that's being taken about these towers, but another thing that perhaps we don't take into consideration is the health issues. There's a lot of controversy back and forth as far as what kind of effect can it have on our bodies. And I'm going to point to an article that came out in the Epoch Times, updated July 31st. And this is about different studies that have been conducted in the European Union. We have results. There have been results on both sides, for and against. I guess the jury's still out. But it says, the article is long, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it says since the 1970s, there's been different, since Motorola introduced the first cordless, hang on a second, lost my place here. Okay, here we go. Studies conducted since the 1970s have suggested possible links between cell phone radiation and health issues, such as infertility, neuropsychiatric problems, cancer, and inflammations. Now, like I said, we have different results depending on who funds the studies. We have results in favor and results against the towers themselves. So, like I said, the jury's still out. Take it into consideration. Would you want a cell phone tower in front of your driveway, in front of your house, that can affect your health, and not only your health, but the property values, the aesthetics issue? I understand the 5G technology requires a lot of cell towers for it to work properly, but I believe there are a lot of other places that can be considered, and it's being talked about here already, in installation of these towers. So I thank you for the opportunity and thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Ravonda Buckingham. And just say your name and your address, and your 3 minutes will begin.
I'm Ravonda Buckingham at 115 Red Spruce Way in Windsor Forest. We actually had our home built there 26 years ago, and we got to watch all the neighborhood kids grow up. But it's a wonderful place to live, and I worked from home, and I looked outside, and there were people in my yard, and of course, I talked to everybody, so I go out to see what they're doing, and he said, we're from Crown Castle, and they were gonna put he told me a 40-foot cell tower, and he pointed here in the corner of my yard, and then he said, if not here, then he pointed to Mark's across the street. And so then we started contacting people. Of course, we don't want this. We love our neighborhood, and we don't want this eyesore. Property values, we know from real estate agents have told us how detrimental that may be as well. And my foremost thing is the health issues, that being right in my yard 24 hours a day. It scares me. It's kind of like I told Eric, they said cigarette smoking was not bad for you. Now we've learned. But, and I have contacted a few people. I've tried to contact Chuck Edwards, and I haven't heard back yet. And then I looked up the 811 call before you dig, and it showed that, Crown Castle, and it showed they were connected with Kimley Horn. If I've got that right.
Engineering firm.
Okay. Anyhow, it showed them there. And when you look up Kimley Horn and Crown Castle, you see that they work together to do thousands of these towers. But other than that, I so appreciate everything Eric's done and all of our neighbors and you guys. Thank you from the bottom of my heart that we can make this not happen.
Thank you for your comments. All righty, Mr. Steve Watkins. Your name and address. I know you know Mr. Watkins.
Why you just say that? Steve Watkins, 200 Windsor Forest Circle, Fletcher. Very quickly, first to echo Ravonda's sentiments about Eric. Man's a superstar. Talk about being responsive, on it, and doing what he can for our town. So first of all, I publicly wanted to thank him for his work. And Mark as well, on it. The mayor responded to texts. This is what you want out of your local government. So I have the confidence that we're all in the same boat. No one wants this in our yards. So it's really, to paraphrase Mr. Davies, sometime with these, with progress, you can't stop it, but maybe you can steer it, correct? So just asking, do the best you can. Certainly going to, but certainly just wanted to let you know how much we appreciate you working, getting on this and doing what you can. So thank you.
And we thank you. Alrighty, and lastly, we have Mr. George Binge.
Don't start the clock till I get up there.
We will not. Just state your name and your address, and then your 3 minutes will begin.
George Binge, 305 Mountain Alder Lane, Windsor Forest subdivision, 26-year resident in the subdivision. First off, I want to thank all my friends and neighbors for coming up and showing their support for this on this important issue. I think it's awesome, and it's also inspiring. And I want to read a prepared statement that it was very brief, and that I'd like it to be entered onto the record
Sure.
of this meeting if you don't do it automatically.
Yeah, if you want, just hand it to the clerk after you've read
Yeah,
it.
let me read it, then I'll give it to you.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. Residents of lovely Windsor Forest neighborhood are fighting to kill a man-made monster that threatens to destroy the blissful quality of our lives and homes in Fletcher, North Carolina. A 40-foot cell tower, or multiple towers, are scheduled for imminent construction in the heart of Windsor Forest. We, the residents of Windsor Forest, oppose the idea of these ghastly towers with every breath we take. That is absolute truth, not hyperbole. Crown Castle, a real estate investment conglomerate based in faraway Houston, Texas, wants to maximize profits by placing their cell towers just feet away from where we conduct our daily lives, raise our children, go for leisurely walks, and enjoy the beautiful, bountiful trees, lawns, bushes, flowers, and all the precious living creatures of nature. Crown Castle is trading at $103.85 per share on the New York Stock Exchange. Windsor Forest residents do not want to become another transaction in Crown Castle's profit and loss portfolio. We plead with Fletcher Town Council members and all local, county, and state officials to do everything within their power to drive a legal, political, or public relations stake through the heart of this corporate vampire's vile plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll leave it here for you.
Good.
That's fine.
Thank you, George.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the public comment sign-up list. However, is there anybody else that wishes to speak during public comment? Sure. Just state your name and your address, and your 3 minutes will begin, sir.
Robert Reeves, 447 Lynn Springs, Fletcher Drive. I do not live in Windsor Forest. I live in South Chase, and some of you may know me, I don't know. But they're putting in a convenience center behind my house. All the parking lights and everything. It's going to be a really great thing. But living here for 10 years now, one of the things we liked about it was the fact that there were no telephone poles, street lights were minimal. And if they're going to do this in Windsor Forest, sorry, I'm all excited here. If they're going to do this in Windsor Forest, they're going to do it in South Chase. If they do it in South Chase, they're going to do it everywhere else too. What little I know, 38 years of electronics, military electronics, these are low frequency signals, I believe. The distance they travel is short. So they're going to be putting more than one pole or two pole in these neighborhoods. So it's going to perpetuate. And I think everybody, both sides of the hall here, need to be aware of that. This is not the last that this will be discussed amongst various folks. So appreciate your concern, appreciate your input, and good luck to us all.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak for public comment? Okay, we'll close the public comment section. And you all are free to stay here or leave. It's your call, but free to do that at your leisure. And we're just going to continue through the agenda. Moving on to updates from council, if there are any.
No.
None, no updates from council. Okay. Just wait a second.
Thank you for coming.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank
again.
y'all.
There's the diehards. Here's the diehards. Got a few good ones, yeah.
All righty. Moving on to the consent agenda. Any questions, comments, concerns related to that item? All righty, seeing none. Moving on to item number 4, the impacts of the recently passed legislation moving council elections to even number years. We have Ms. Summer Heatherly, Director of Elections. And Ms. Heatherly, thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Yes, I am Summer. I actually just got appointed Friday from the state. My board had nominated me into the state came through, so, and I'm just going to email the county had approved me. So anyways, what I am
Well,
here for-
congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you. The legislation was passed a few months back that all the municipals, all of the elections are going to go to an even year. However, in that legislation, they did not pass the primary as well. So what y'all's charter states is that the primary has to be held 6 Tuesdays before the general election. So that would put us in October. Now, we're good, but we're not that good. It's about impossible for us to be able to pull off an election in October right in the middle of the general. So let me just tell you how this would work. So we would have our regular primary in March, and then of course our second primary in May. And then we would have y'all's primary in October, but we have to start sending out general ballots in September. So y'all see kind of the issue that we would have there with having a primary. So what we're asking is that y'all pass to move your primary to March. Now, with that being said, I have talked to Tim Moffitt, talked to him on Friday. He is going to try to get this to legislation, to get this passed so that it's taken out of y'all's hands completely. Everything will just fall, just like every other election does. It would be March, and then if, of course, y'all are nonpartisan, so y'all wouldn't have a second primary. But it would be March, and then it would be November. That being said, you would be filing in December instead of July, like y'all have been in the past with municipals. So if y'all decide to do something and can move it back to March, or if Tim Moffitt can get this passed, you would be filing, whatever seats are up, you'd be filing December 1st through the 15th. Any questions?
Was Senator Moffitt confident that he could get it done in time?
He's pretty confident. He said that he's pretty confident he could do. I know when Mark and I talked about the charter and what was in there, I will say that I've spoke with Buncombe County and Asheville City because they weren't able to get this passed in 2019. They started working on this, so 2021 they went to the 2022 election. They just passed an ordinance themselves, so that it wouldn't necessarily have to come in the charter, because when you do your charter, it has to go for legislation and all that good stuff. So they passed an ordinance, and I have a copy of that they sent me via email this afternoon, so I'd be glad to pass that on to y'all if that's something y'all would like to look at. But we're hoping and praying that Tim Moffitt can get that taken care of.
And so this would mean our primary would coincide with the federal and the state primaries?
So being a nonpartisan, if, I guess the primary, if there's more than 3, or is it, if there's just 2 people run, do you still have to do a?
It depends on what's up. So like, if there's only one council seat,
There's usually 2 at one time.
if there's 2 at one time, then you will have, if there's more than 5, you're right?
What the statute says is it's more than.
Sorry, this is Eric Travis. He's with me.
More than twice the number of seats available. So not every election you guys are, it's an odd number of council. So not every election you're going to have.
It's also
7
different,
out.
it's also different districts.
Right. But if you have.
Well, I was going to say, when I first ran, I had a primary, and there was 3 people
So
that were up for election,
If
and
there's
then we had
3
to.
seats open and 6 people file, there's no primary. If 7 people file, you've suddenly met the threshold for more than twice.
But is that for that district, though? Like, I know
Yeah, it's for
district.
the-
It is.
So it's,
Well,
because that'd be the question. Right now, we have District 2 and 3 coming up. So
Yeah,
if there's
I
2
don't-
people applied for District 2, do they have to have a primary?
no. Nope.
So, but they will have to still register in December.
In December.
Yes.
Mark, what was your comment?
I was just gonna say, our understanding was like, so we have 2 seats up. If it's more than 2 people file for an individual seat, then
If
it
it's
needs
that
a.
large, correct.
No, we have districts.
yeah.
We have
I'll have to go back and
districts.
look at the chart, but I know that the way the statute reads, it's more than twice the number of seats available. And I
Yeah,
don't know how that
okay.
is going to impact districts. We'll have to go back.
And we haven't dealt with it much. I mean, I've been here over
I've only-
17
yeah,
years.
it doesn't happen
and-
often.
Yeah, and I think Bob Davy was the only, Councilman Davy was the only one that, and that was a little before my time, where I think he had 3 that filed at one time. He needed a primary.
I had a
because
primary.
there's more than
It has
2
been one of
people.
the town of
So,
Fletcher in the
yeah.
last 10 or so years.
I had a primary when I ran for council.
Yeah, and it's because you had more than 2 in your district.
Correct, yeah, there was 3 in the
Okay.
district
If it's
that
only
filed.
2, I mean,
Okay.
if you
And that-
clarify that
again,
for
Not
us.
everybody, some of them are at large, not all of them file
Yeah.
by district.
Top folk
not
get it.
municipalities, I mean. But yeah, it may be, maybe it's based on, maybe that statute applies to the district itself, so. But I know the town of Fletcher did have, I think it's 1 in the last 10 or so years, so it does happen, it can happen.
So that would be, there would have to be more than two people per district by the December 1st to 15th date? Is that what you're saying?
Right, to have primary.
To have a primary?
And it would save y'all money too, just letting y'all know, because it'll be, because we're doing the federal and the state elections. So that, the only thing that it would probably cost y'all is if we have to do a different ballot style. Whereas, if y'all look back in your past bills, just what, what it normally costs, it would be very, very minimal.
But the main objective is to get more people out to vote without having such a small election that people just don't pay attention to it, correct?
Exactly.
That's the objective.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because I know in Asheville and Buncombe County, the mayor had, when they just did the municipal, was elected on 23% of the votes, because that's how many people came out. In 2022, it was 57%. So it was more than double the people that came out to vote. Because, of course, a lot of them don't know who people are on the ballot. So we encourage the candidates to get out and let people know. Because if you're not in the municipality, people are not knowing who you are. So, and Ms. Preston will know to stand out there for 2 elections. With very, very minimal people coming, so.
Have any other municipalities had any issues with it?
The only other two besides y'all is Flat Rock and Hendersonville. Flat Rock is meeting tomorrow night to talk about it. We did speak to the mayor of Flat Rock. He's on board to get it moved. It's just that if the council will. Now, Hendersonville City, we're working on it. And we meet with them on the 23rd of August to talk to them about possibly getting it moved. Now, we do have Saluda and Mills River and Laura Park. Now, they are plurality, which means that anybody who files, they just have it in November. They don't even have a primary. That's something they want to do. That's totally up to y'all. But those are the other 3 municipals that we have that do at-large pluralities.
So did Hendersonville have an issue?
Right
with that?
now, they're not happy to move it, so we're trying to, and see, the way that y'all's charter state is y'all do whatever Hendersonville City does. The way that it states in the law that we got, and I know Mark and I have read that whatever Hendersonville City, if they have a primary, y'all have a primary, it's on that, and I thought that was just kind of strange. So, but y'all follow in the policy, so y'all would just follow whatever Hendersonville had.
So if I'm hearing that correctly, we need Hendersonville to be on board according to the...
No, y'all can do it yourself.
Okay.
You can change that yourself with either an ordinance or Tim Lawful will change it.
Okay, I see.
Or legislation.
That's how, she's saying this is how.
That's how it's written.
That's
Yeah,
how
I
it's written.
understand.
Yeah. So if Hendersonville City gets on board, we're on board.
Okay.
Yeah, then you don't need a bill change if the city of Hendersonville does.
If they can get it passed through legislation, though, see what
Okay.
we're dealing
It's
with
that
is
same
we're
thing.
short on time.
It's still legislation.
Right. And I know when I talked to Tim Moffitt, he had no idea, because he thought everybody was just plurality. He thought everybody would just have the one election, because that was what he was looking at.
And the thing, and I would assume Hendersonville is kind of, just got weird change. They don't know how the implications yet. This isn't going to change how you guys conduct elections. Still going to have your primaries. It's just, imagine this year, if you do need a primary, and you have to hold it in October when the presidential early voting begins in October.
Yeah.
And where we're holding a primary for a municipality. So that's what we're trying to avoid. We're just trying to avoid all that. I mean, those are resources that Fletcher's going to need for the presidential general that we're going to have to use for the primary. Hendersonville, same thing. They have 5 or 6 precincts, 7 precincts.
Yeah.
We'd have to open up 7 sites in October when early voting begins the same month for the presidential. So you kind of see the conflict of why we're trying to just create, or trying to avoid that kind of long game on in the month of October.
I can see why you're doing it, but to me, for a little local election, having somebody forcing them to register a full year in advance seems like a lot of lead time.
It is, from our standpoint, the registration, and I won't speak for you, that's not necessarily the conflict. A little election, and maybe a little election to the public or you guys, we don't treat it any different than any other.
Mm-hmm.
If Hendersonville wants to the high school, Hendersonville High School, we're going to open that up for a primary for the Hendersonville Town Council, just as we would for a general for residential. To us, it's about the resources and about the time and all that time we're gonna need to get ready for much bigger things on the line. So, yeah, I can understand seeing, yeah, it's a smaller election, but we can't afford to treat it.
Right.
Resources and everything that go into that.
It takes just as much time to do a little election as it does to do a big election.
Well, I think I understand the issue well, and I'm comfortable with it if council is.
Yeah, we can update after we hear from Tim. Just wanted to-
Yeah. All right. Did you have something more?
I was just going to ask, and I don't want to interrupt if y'all have any questions. Do you need action by council on this at this point? A motion that they support the filing period, December, primary in March? Or obviously if the bill goes through, if Senator Moffett introduces a bill, that just takes care of it. There's no, but
If he doesn't,
Yeah.
It'll be up to y'all to have something in writing, whether it's ordinance legislation, at least by October.
Okay.
So that we can get everything
yeah.
set and ready to go, because filing, like I said, starts December 1st. And so we'll
Because
be
it's already
starting this in-
August now. yeah.
Well, so that would mean if he's not able to get it done in time, we would need that ordinance pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I'll be
It's
glad
got
to
some
get
type
that.
of
We got one
official
tomorrow,
Yeah.
maybe
approval.
From Buncombe County, so you can see how they did that.
Okay. I get just one other thought on this. How does it get promoted, the new filing
Yeah, that's a
period?
good
So
question.
people know that, hey, for municipal elections in Fletcher, for the 2 seats that would be up, that it's, oh, hey, it's opening December 1 through December 15th. I don't know, I imagine it gets some newspaper articles out on that, or I don't know how much a Board of Elections is allowed to advertise this or promote it, or I don't know.
We will have it on our Facebook, we'll have it on our website, and we do go through the lightning, and, we do send it out. We have what is called a sunshine list that we send this out to people to let them know that the filing period starts. Now, it'd be up to the person that's, gonna run to find out exactly when the filing is, as far as us reaching out to anyone.
We'll have all the
Yeah.
information on our website, and we reach out to our media sources.
Right.
And then we Times News, Lightning, we run ads in the Lightning, but we'll reach out to all of them to ensure they have the information. It will be there, it's just a matter of ensuring they find it.
Because some of the concern, I mean, if we recall properly, on moving this to even-numbered years, is that it would get lost or kind of washed into the other elections, and then the municipal don't necessarily get the attention for people to notice and file and run. So that's why I asked that.
Yeah.
And I know our folks, I mean, we could do whatever to get the word out. But we have to be careful about that too. That's very neutral and not,
We gotta make sure that we're still maintaining a nonpartisan.
right.
But we reach out to, we post it in our office at the courthouse, we reach out to media sources in the county, in Western County, WLS, we try to get the word out as much as we can. Especially when there's change, especially when there's change.
All right. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you for coming
Yeah.
up.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
All righty, moving on to item number 5, the discussion of the lease agreement for farming the town-owned property. Mr. Manager.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. So this came up, this item basically is a series of conversations or inquiries I was getting from another farmer who was very interested, or is very interested in the property that the town owns across from Meritor. As you know, we've got that under lease with Mr. Timmy Johnston and Taproot Grain Farms is his name of the business, or LLC. And then the town also is farming the property right behind Town Hall here to a Michael Simpson. He's got under a grading company name. And he's expressed strong interest in the property, the Meritor property. I have reached out to Mr. Johnston, who's farming on the town's property across from Meritor. He still is interested in farming it and is invested, you know, any farmer that's doing a large tract of land, it's not uncommon for them to do maintenance on the drainage ditches, and they spend a bunch of time in between the seasons. So there is expense for them to do that as a part of their whole farming operation. He has indicated he wants to do that. They spent a considerable amount of money this past year working on those areas. I brought this up because when I shared it, because I kept getting these inquiries from Mr. Simpson about, hey, I'm interested. I go, well, there's really nothing we can do unless we terminate the agreement, because you feel you have a better use of the property, or maybe being paid more money from a different farmer. Right now, Mr. Johnston's arrangement is $131 an acre. I did ask Mr. Simpson if it went up, how much? He said $150 an acre. When I do the math on the amount of acres that's being farmed there, it's even though the tract is really big, there's limitations on how much you can farm on it. I think technically it's like 93 acres, but he's only farming on 47 acres of it. And the reason is, I think, twofold. Well, one definitely is there's this big conservation easement that goes around the stream that we worked with the state to turn into a meandering stream years ago. So it knocked out all this land that's basically a buffer around the stream. So it's not a lot of acreage, but when I do the math between the two, it's barely $1,000 more. It's less than $1,000 more. So I throw that out to you. The other stipulation on the contract is you have to give 6 months notice to terminate it. Either party can, the town or the farmer in it. And the reasons, because all the lead time they have in planting crops and so forth. I'm not recommending you terminate this. I mean, the arrangement's working well. We've had this inquiry and it keeps throwing it out, and I can only so many times say, well, hey, we have an agreement there, and it's working right now. It was Billy Johnston's operation, Taproot Dairy, before that. He came out of it, and then Timmy Johnston, under a different company name, was interested, and we redid the lease at that time. And we didn't have other interests when that rolled off. It's like it kind of comes and goes, where we get inquiries from farmers that are looking for additional land. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, this property is getting scarce for people to farm around here. And, I don't know, maybe this is a discussion for another day, but do you consider for some longer period of time to continue to farm that land as the highest and best use of property, or a majority of it? And because it's got a lot of limitations. I mean, we've looked at potential park facilities, but a lot of it's in the really rough part of the flood plain, the floodway, and it's got some challenges. The very front of it's got barely an acre out of the floodplain, and some on the flood fringe where you can elevate a little bit of acreage. So that's just something to think about. I didn't know if there was any interest in considering, continued discussions with Mr. Simpson on his, it's not a formal offer, but I wanted to get an idea, well, if council would even consider going to someone else, how much would you be doing on that? Because is it worthwhile to, establish a new contract?
Well,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, it's my perspective as it stands. Arrangements working with Mr. Johnston. He's been a good tenant from my understanding. He's invested a significant amount of resources on the property. My preference would be not to break the lease, to stay where we're at. Sorry.
Okay.
Councilmember.
Yes, Johnston, he reached out to me as well, and had stated he did put a lot of time and money into the property for this upcoming year, so, that's not good business. That's trying to, I feel, not, just coming out of the contract with that. And also, it sounds like Simpson is already doing farming here, so he's got land from the town already farming, so he's wanting all of it, we need to share. And number three, the email that he sent, I guess, to you was very unprofessional, I thought, and very pushy too, which I honestly, personally don't like that. But I'm agree with the mayor. I think the contract should stay the same in the Johnston family,
How long has the price been set at the same price, or is there inflation built into it, or?
There's some language that we can look at inflation on it, or like reevaluate the price per acre on an annual basis. It's not a specific amount.
I mean,
It's set to
as
go
well
by.
as, if we're getting a reasonable amount, I've got no problems with it, although I'm a little bit leery about having a permanent contract. I'd almost rather have a.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
3 or
Yeah.
4 year contract and renew it a year before it's up or something,
I would
to
agree
give
with
them
that,
enough
yeah.
time, but
See, I kind of think like a 10-year contract would be more appropriate for the money that they have to put into it to get their money back out of it, or 5-year, 10-year, a little bit longer, because, they do put a lot of work into that and fixing the soils and, erosion and all that. I agree, though, I don't think a lifetime contract ought to be, definitely if it expires, I think we should put some kind of time limit on it.
Yeah, and I was a little remiss. I mean, we set it up under similar terms to what we had when Taproot Dairy was doing it, Billy Johnson's operation. Probably should have put in, 10-year, 3-year, something to revisit, and, then maybe you get bids or quotes from a couple people on it to get.
I mean, something else to consider too is we're not getting a whole lot of money for it, but if they weren't there, we would have to be paying to maintain that property. Keep it mowed, cut down, and weeds out of it, where at least they're taking care of that.
That's a very valid point, but also I think that it's important to let him maintain that. I mean, farmland is just disappearing, and he's been a good tenant. There's no way I'd break an agreement over $779. But I'm kind of curious, what exactly did he want to farm? What did he want to put in there? Simpson.
Tomatoes and possibly peppers.
Yeah,
But
they
it would
usually
not-
grow them together.
it's Typically, historically, what's been done on there, that the Johnsons have been farming is corn.
For
I think
silage?
I think silage. But Mr. Simpson's tomatoes, I think primarily, and then maybe some other type of vegetable.
Just depends on, depends on the vegetable, if like tomatoes or whatever. You can only grow so many times in the soil, then they have to,
Switch out.
switch out, yeah.
Yeah,
So
there's issues with, depending on what type of crop you do.
and, what's right's right, what's wrong. It's not, shouldn't be all about the money, I think. I agree with
No.
Sheila. It is, $750, where it was.
$779.
It's not all about the
No,
money.
I
It's
wouldn't do that.
what's right for people, So,
Yeah, and I didn't like the tone of the email either. To me, it was condescending and unprofessional in his speech towards, farming that property. But I wouldn't consider it anyway. It'd be an automatic no for me.
And this didn't require action unless you wanted to take some action on it. So I know you wanted someone to express more information, discussion on it, so that's why I wanted to put it on here.
Well, if you want to discuss or decide to go up a little bit on the lease, I would just ask that let's be reasonable in our train of
Right.
thought. Because it's not always about the money, and you don't want to outprice him to where he can't afford to
Right.
do all the things that he has to do to keep the property up.
Right.
Yeah, even,
Yeah, I would agree with that.
even if he kept the lease the same, like I said, he's keeping up the maintaining of the property, so that should count for something.
It sure
a little bit.
does.
Well, it might be fair to maybe consider putting some kind of time on the lease, and at the end of the lease, maybe visiting that price per acre. But right now, I think we're okay.
Yeah.
But in the future, maybe we want to
Yeah.
look at that, some kind
Yeah.
of time frame.
Yeah, again, I was remiss that when we did the new one, and we did it similar terms, we probably should have put some ending point on there, short of giving notice to get out of
Yeah.
it. And both parties can give notice and get out much sooner, too. if we
Well, I
both
think
want
at the
to,
time, we
so.
just thought that that was a better lease arrangement for him to indicate, hey, you can have it from here on out. But now when I think about doing a 3-year or 5-year, it kind of gives him a little bit more security that, okay, if I drop this money in irrigation and everything else, then I'm good to go for at least a few years.
Yeah.
So I think it's maybe a bigger benefit for him.
Yeah, and
to
just
do
as
that.
a reminder too, the front part of that property is on the Partnership for Economic Development's website, is being marketed as potential industrial property. I mean, it's not a lot of land, it's got, I'm talking the areas that are buildable on the front part of it. They're not getting many inquiries, so it doesn't appear that it's, I guess, desirable enough that someone's jumping in. It would have to be a small manufacturer, because there's just not a lot of room. And there are some small looking, maybe for smaller pieces, but right now it appears to be, at least in my opinion, seeing everything on it, kind of highest and best use is agricultural, at least for the time being.
And we do have it in the contract that, if we get a great offer, all we need is 6 months' notice.
Yep, and we've also looked, like, maybe an acre in the front, if we ever relocated Public Works and Parks and Rec maintenance, there's some space there we could use. We don't have to go and buy land.
Yeah.
As long as that works.
All right, sounds like we're okay where we're at, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on that item? All righty, moving on to item number 6, the discussion of potential public engagement efforts. Mr. Manager.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This was a follow-up item to some discussion you had a while back. And this was, so right after the Polko National Citizen Survey that we conducted here in Fletcher and shared the results with you, and just kind of had a little conversation about, ongoing public engagement, because what really precipitated doing this was a desire to get a little more feedback from the public about, how are we doing, suggestions, maybe for other things, services, et cetera. So, we had that conversation, and I mentioned one thing, Polko has this digital database that we're in, digital service, where we can do smaller surveys, like if you had an issue on rezoning for conditional district rezoning and you wanted to get input from the public about that, or something controversial, let's say, like potentially controversial, not necessarily absolutely, but post-camp evaluation with summer day camp, or which we do one, but maybe we could use their mechanism to do that. Just there's lots, so we're in that, we're paying for that. We have that already for a year. It was part of our overall deal to do the first survey. So that was one thing. We're doing engagement efforts with the town newsletter to share information, our website. Not a lot of people go to town websites, I would say, quite as much, unless you're searching for an update or information about a permit or service or what have you, ordinances. Facebook has been a little bit more, timely social media information sharing. We're doing that. And then that connects Blackboard, and it's got another name now, so our calling database where we give updates on services issues. So those are all good ones. But I know it had come up also for discussion, and I think, Mayor, you had brought it up, and it seemed like there was some general interest, and this isn't something you have to do, but it's just another thing to consider. I know you mentioned what, like Hendersonville had
Right.
done some, they were like small public engagement meetings where the public just has an opportunity to really more hear from them than us give a speech or presentation. And it was called Council Conversations. They've been doing it for several years. And they right now, I think they're doing 5 meetings spread across the city there to kind of hit different parts of town or maybe target different areas. And it's a council member facilitates one of each of the meetings, and they can give an update on a particular issue, have staff available to answer questions if maybe there's something that comes up that you might not know the answer to, but we would. And it's just, again, an opportunity to hear from the public about issues of importance, or sometimes you get some really good nuggets out of something like that someone says something that you aren't aware of or never thought of as ideas. So I'm not pushing this, but if you want to do this, I can come back with some suggestions or options, or we're open to what you want to do. If you want to do this, if you have ideas. Our dilemma a little bit in town here is we don't have a lot of places to do that. Hendersonville's got some more options. We got town hall, but it's a little bit, maybe it's not the most engaging room here if we're doing just a little dialogue session interaction. So we got town hall, we got council chambers, we got the multi-purpose room upstairs. That's a little bit more intimate setting. The library has some meeting space, a little bit bigger meeting room at the bottom level. I was just trying to think of other ones.
You could use Steel Case
we could
Shelter,
do-
and you could use Kate's Park gazebo
Yeah,
for
I
an
mean,
outdoor
right.
setting.
That's, good suggestions. I started to think like out, Hooper's Creek out your way. I don't know, maybe that community building there, I don't know how much
Yeah.
that's used or that's available. Just something to spread it around. And if y'all were interested, we can work on some ideas for format on it. And sometimes they're well attended and, sometimes not as much. And so it's just another community kind of public engagement to reach out and meet and
Meet and greet, have
and
coffee.
get- Yeah, and get
Listen to
correct
concerns.
feedback from residents about things.
I'd be interested in it still. The only comment, and thank you for suggesting the outside format. I think that's a good idea too. I'm not sure that we would need to do 5.
Oh, and you don't
Like-
have to, yeah,
like
that's what they're
Hendersonville.
doing, I'm just.
Because I'm not sure that we would have that.
Yeah,
I think engagement's
I
been
think it's probably-
going on the upward trend in Fletcher, but I think
Right.
5 will probably be too many for us. I'm not sure if you all,
No, you can start
I
off small and
agree.
you can always grow it.
and we can see how it goes.
Yeah.
yeah.
So maybe come
we
back to us with
Yeah,
some
yeah.
ideas.
Yeah, and
We're okay with
I
that?
wanted to give, I know
Absolutely.
staff's aware of this maybe a little bit, but, talk to department heads about, ideas, suggestions they have too, to kind of come up with some options for you to consider.
I mean, what about
Okay.
starting, maybe eventually plan it once a quarter or something, but just start one of our council meetings once a quarter at 5 o'clock, an hour early, let anybody come, and it's a discussion period. I don't know.
That's a good idea.
In general, though, to me, people, I don't see people holding back from coming to our meetings and talking to us, so I'm not convinced these things are going to be very well received, to tell you the truth.
I tend to
that's
agree. I don't have a problem with being available, and I don't have a problem with meeting with others. It's just that folks are busy, and I agree with you. I don't think people are having an issue with reaching out to us when they feel the need, but for that matter, we could have maybe had a tent available on shred day to where, you
That's fair
know,
too.
just to where we were available to talk to anybody, because that was a time when, you know, you got to speak to some folks, and Trevor and I both got to speak to some folks, and so I think that's just as beneficial as having a meet and greet anywhere, because we were kind of having our own meet and greet when someone, you know.
I think that's a really good idea. Maybe we could just plan it around events that we're already doing and maybe have two council members so we're not in quorum together.
Yeah,
And just talk. I actually think that's probably a better idea.
that's a good way to start anyway.
And it depends on the setting. Like if you come in here an hour before, you know, this setting right here, people more don't want to approach because you're sitting on a stage. You know, it needs to be more of a relaxed setting. If you're sitting there drinking a cup of coffee with the
You can
people,
have coffee and
they'll open up
refreshments in the
more.
back room
Yeah.
before, or in the community
think you
room
need-
upstairs.
They're more
But I mean,
connected.
if it's an announced meeting, we can still meet upstairs and sit around a table having coffee, and we can have all 5 of us if we want.
It's true,
Yeah, I like that.
yeah.
Well, I really like your idea.
The park's a very casual, kind of open setting, or if you did it in conjunction with an event at the park, too.
Yeah.
The only problem, I guess, is that people are there for the event and not necessarily to talk about.
Well, folks
Yeah.
that came through to drop off
But-
at the shred day,
I was gonna say, they
Yeah.
had no problem,
They
they had no
talked.
problem
I
talking
loved
about.
yeah, that was great.
Okay.
You know, it's a Saturday morning, they're just dropping off a box or two, and
And by
some
the
of them
way,
were,
this.
yeah, some of them were
Yeah.
very prone to ask questions or talk, and it was really great.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to do in conjunction with events, see how
Yeah.
it goes.
Okay.
Maybe
Come up with some
we should
ideas.
try to plan a shred day twice a year and just
you mentioned
advertise
it
it
one
as
time.
meet your council members.
Yeah.
I know somebody
that's-
mentioned at one time, but at the shred event, asked if we ever considered doing it twice a year.
Yeah, we were asked that a couple
I've
of
actually
times.
got something coming up here under manager comments. I was
Yeah.
gonna,
Okay.
it's not one we're doing, but that First Citizens Bank wants to do at the branch.
Along these lines, I know I went to it because I was invited, but it's called the Community Night Out or something like that.
National Night Out.
National Night
Yeah.
Out. Maybe we can make that a more centralized location at Town Hall or somewhere and invite police department, EMS, and the fire trucks to come down there. There's a lot of people in that neighborhood that really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Do we have any other comments on that? This-
No.
Mark, are you pretty clear from us?
Yeah,
Okay.
I am. We'll work on some ideas, things to come back to you with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, we'll move on to your comments.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm just making some notes.
Yeah, no worries. Take your time.
So just several things under manager comments, the sound walls, so I know I've been talking to you for some time, and
The I-26 project, sound walls near Wildwood, that's continuing to move forward. Last time I'd mentioned like possibly August for this contact letter that has to go out to specific impacted property owners. It's probably looking more like September for that. So we're continuing to monitor it. We want to either call and/or send our own letter to these property owners just to make sure when they get this, that they do something with it and it doesn't get set aside or, we did find out it only takes a simple majority. So it does, doesn't take 80% or some real high number, just, at least, over half, have to respond affirmatively in the letter back to them. And they're ready to go on this, you know, I'm hearing behind the scenes. I think just they get that information and they can move on this. So hopefully that'll be a big improvement for sound protection there, and it will improve it. So that, just quick update on that. Unless there's any questions, the next thing I wanted to mention was another DOT-related issue, but so the left turn movement, so 2 years ago, DOT slightly reconfigured on Highway 25 as you turn into Ingalls, turn left into Ingalls from Highway 25. They shifted it over. If you remember, they made some like actual physical improvements to the turn lane. And then they also put that flashing yellow. Well, all of us have driven through there trying to go in there. And when it's on that flashing yellow, if there's any cars, and there usually is, turning left, coming the opposite direction to go on to Old Airport, the sight distance is really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And you go through there, you better be prepared to go through there fast, in case someone else is coming faster than normal the other way. They have had, so I'll back up a little bit. Just recently, there was another accident involving a motorcycle at that intersection, and I know Mayor had mentioned something to me about it, and there's just been so many. So I contacted Steve Buchanan, who's the traffic engineer for DOT for this area. He responded pretty quickly and said, well, we gotta look at accident history and et cetera. So the police department started gathering data on it, and they looked at 2.5 years before they did this change to that intersection, and then 2.5 years after it, roughly it's 2 years, 5 months. And I believe there was 4 accidents in that left turn movement for the 2 years prior to when they made that change at the intersection. And then the 2.5 years after it was 17 accidents.
Whoa.
A lot of them with injuries, you know, where people are transported. So it's pretty remarkable. I mean, not to say that their intention, I think, to move traffic through there more efficiently was not a bad thing, but I mean, we're really concerned that there was a bad unintended consequence of this, and that's the fact of that flashing yellow and not being able to see the oncoming traffic. And some people won't go through it, and that's fine. They're not, I mean, you're not comfortable because you just can't see it well enough the other way. And I'm sure we've all experienced where it's close calls going through there if you do decide to gun it or try and proceed. So the police department has shared that data that they collected with DOT. We did hear back from them that they want to look at more information on the individual accidents, because they want to look at time of day and, you know, verify it was a left turn movement and what all happened. So they're doing that. We do want to hear back from them and follow up relatively quickly, because, and we do perceive this as a fairly significant safety issue there. So just let you know, and we, town hall and your staff's gotten lots of calls about it ever since that, particularly when they changed it. People were really upset, and, it's tough getting through there. And I'm sure DOT gets complaints from time to time about it. So I wanted to share that with you, let you know we're trying to work with them, and the police department did a really good job of pulling some information together, some traffic accident history, and got that to them quickly. So thank them for that.
And it's got a long turning lane right there. It can take quite a few cars to back up during red light changes.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's as short as it was.
Right.
I mean, it's a pretty long left turning lane. I have a teenage driver, and I had a heart attack right there one day.
I bet.
I banned him. I said, if you ever do that again,
Yeah.
you're not driving, because you can't, there's tractor and trailers going into the industrial park. you cannot see. It's just too
Yeah.
risky.
Yeah.
And that was a bad accident the other day.
It was.
That was up there. I mean, that was serious business.
Pa-
That's,
Part of the problem is the way that they have, when they reconfigured it, they put two turn lanes turning down
yeah.
Old
Old
Airport
Airport
Road.
Road.
Yeah.
But once you get on Old Airport Road, if I remember right, it's the left turn lane that disappears, not the right turn.
It's
Yeah.
turn left only.
So all the trucks get in the far lane, which
Uh-huh.
blocks the vision if you're trying to turn into Ingalls.
Yeah.
If the trucks were in the other lane, it probably wouldn't be that big of a problem.
Yeah, because it gives you more to looking north
Right.
there, sightline, yeah.
But I noticed that one day, I came up there and says, why in the devil is everybody in the right lane and nobody's in the left lane?
That's because of that, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So do we make the ask for it to be turn on green only?
Or ask them to analyze it.
Yeah, they need to analyze it and come up with it. I mean, it probably should go back to solid
Yeah, I mean, I think
green.
it's a,
But
easy
I'm
ask.
sure there's a longer explanation of now that they redid the turn lane and that they're gonna get stacking then coming back out if you're only waiting for a solid green, or I don't know. They need to, it's a problem.
yeah.
It's a problem. So, and that Ingalls gets a lot of traffic. It's a
Mhm.
very busy Ingalls grocery store. So I want to share that, and then we'll keep you updated as that proceeds, and hopefully we'll get something meaningful changed on there. The next thing was, I know you all mentioned a little earlier, the Community Shred Day, and then we talked about trying to do one in the fall, and then one in, we do one in the spring, usually in April. First Citizens Bank had reached out to Heather Taylor in our office and about trying to do a shred day. They would run it, pay for it, and up at the First Citizens branch right here in Fletcher. They didn't want to do a Saturday, so we're trying to do, I think, a Friday. It's so October 20th. This isn't set in stone yet, but just to give you an idea, we're trying to look in October, and right now we're trying to settle on an October 20th date. I believe that's a Friday. So, thanks. So just to let you know that's something that's in the works right now.
So what exactly do they want from the town, if anything?
Nothing, just, I think, to help promote it.
Okay.
Yeah, it is, we do our banking with, the town does with First Citizens Bank, so.
Okay.
Just kind of another
Just promote it.
partnership.
Yeah,
thing.
sure.
And it'd be great, if they pay for the cost of it, so. And
Yeah,
make
lots of
sure-
residents use it.
I'm curious to see the turnout, whether on a Friday you get
Yeah.
the turnout that you would on a Saturday, I don't know.
I think maybe if you
Good to
did
see.
it on a Friday afternoon, I don't know about Friday morning, but, because we've typically done it 9 to noon here at Town Hall, but it's a Saturday, and that's a
Saturday.
good time, to do it.
I mean, I'm a little bit worried about people who, both spouses work. If this thing is only during regular business hours, people may not have time to come do it.
Yeah, I'm guessing they're doing that because their staff are gonna be running it, right?
Yeah.
They work Monday
Yeah.
through Friday.
And really, I mean, I don't know, we could talk to them more about it. I'm sure they want some of their staff out there, but really the company operates the work. I mean, you come in
Yeah.
there, you have a system of coming in, unload and, out, and the operator of the shredding company really kind of does that, but I'm sure they want to be there.
Do
Yeah,
we
some
have
of
that
their
last
folks.
company down for an April date next year?
Not yet.
Not yet, it's
Yeah.
too early.
Yeah,
You
we-
sure it's
I
too
usually
early?
I contact them in January
Okay.
every
We
year.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds good.
We'll do that soon. So I just want to let you know about that. And then the last thing, tax bills. We were supposed to get the tax scroll, which is basically the list of all the bills from the county. And they were supposed to get it today. They're behind schedule. I don't know if it ever hit yet today, but related to the tax bills going out, I think at the last one, last year, year before, we did a another attachment in there, basically to try and share with people that we've got the Blackboard calling system. If you don't have your number in there and you want to sign up for it to do it, it's kind of hard to get that outreach to people.
Right.
You know, sort of doing a letter to, you know, all our residents that we have a record here, or addresses or tax addresses. So that's in there, and then you've got a copy of it on the dais here. We made a copy. So that, signing up for the town newsletter, letting them know about Facebook, our website, and also council contact information if they want to get in touch with you. So that's all on that one pager, and that would go with tax bills that are going out.
I think that's great.
Good.
Yeah. And Susan in our office designed that, did a really good
Yeah,
job
I
on
think
it.
it looks really good. I mean, all you can do is provide people the information. If they choose not to use it, that's up to them.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be a certain color, like something like a blue or something, where it's just kind of snap when you print it out?
It should be.
Where you catches around?
Otherwise, it just
Yeah.
blends with that tax
Yeah, now
bill.
let's throw it away.
I know. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, we can look at doing something color on.
Yeah.
She had, I forget what the other, do you remember what the emblem was initially?
It was some sort of a smiley face with like talking on a cell phone, and she
Yeah.
just couldn't get the coloring right on it. The
I-
way it looked, it just didn't look right.
But yeah, something color or something
Yeah, something
catchy
catchy.
on that,
Yeah.
yeah. All right.
Because they might be thinking it's a instruction manual to how to pay your bill. Like, when you
Right.
buy a piece of furniture, the first thing you
Yeah.
do is throw the instructions away, and you kind
I
of.
think she was just trying to be careful because
Yeah.
of the cost of color ink and how much.
Well, I was just thinking it's like it's a piece of paper, like the actual color paper, like a solid yellow or
Yeah,
something.
colored paper would be a good.
Yeah,
idea.
it's
Just
a solid
something
yellow.
so it looks different.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks, yeah, that's good feedback. And that's all I had.
You want to mention this?
Oh, yeah. Bob's holding up the
Rooted.
Partnerships annual event that they're doing, Partnership for Economic Development. It's going to be in September
14th.
Yep.
Yep. Those are always really nice if y'all can make it. I know some of you have been to them in the past. And they're going to be doing that. This one's at the Camp Greystone out near Flat Rock, Zirconia.
Yeah, I like the
So, yeah, if you're interested, make sure to RSVP, or if you want to let Christine know, she can RSVP for you.
I've already sent mine, my two in.
I did as well.
But I don't think I have ever gone to one of these annual events for the partnership that wasn't an enjoyable evening.
Yeah. I think last year was Reinhardt.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
We did one of the, Camp Pinnacle or something one
Yeah.
year, and that
Yeah,
was
that
really
was
interesting.
fun.
I mean, they're very creative. I mean, Brittany and her staff they always try and do something to make it a little different and entertaining, creative. And it's just a nice social evening too, to kind of network with your peers from other local governments.
Politicians.
Industry, the people, other politicians.
Ironically, when we were at that other camp, I sat right next to Mark Meadows.
Oh, yeah.
We had a table full last time at the Reinhardt.
Yeah?
Well, I'll just have one question before we close out, and I'll open up for any other business if anybody has any. So Mark, I had an inquiry from a resident regarding Fanning Bridge Road and some of the targeted enforcement efforts. I know we were doing that in March. Does that still look the same? I think Chief's on vacation now, so maybe we need to revisit this. But what does enforcement look like on Fanning Bridge?
Well, I know they have, and typically they'll sometimes do it more frequently with citizen requests or things that they observe. I just talked to the chief again about it the other day, and I think they try and rotate around to other areas. I know as they get fully staffed, it's easier to do that, to target it. Right now, they're kind of, where they're getting a lot of, I'll just say, more valuable as far as crime is concerned. They
Sure.
do a lot of traffic stops, a high number, and they're getting good stops on it as far as like outstanding warrants and other things like that. So that's been a little bit more of a focus right now.
Sure.
Because they've had a lot of meaningful arrests.
Yeah, I think I looked at the, yes, I think,
Yeah, you had a big spike there.
I think comparing to last August, if I read the report correctly, the crime
Yeah.
decreased a pretty
Yeah.
significant amount. if I'm
But it's
remembering
good,
that
you know,
correctly. But
we need to keep doing targeted enforcement. Fanning Bridge Road is a very good one because it's got high volume of traffic and there's some speeders on it. And some of the data supported it from the traffic sample. So, you know, I will share that back with him again. They do a lot on 25 too.
Sure.
But they're trying to get the highest traveled areas and the areas where they're seeing people that they stop that are maybe having a higher chance that there's other criminal activity going on, where there's drugs in the car or outstanding warrants
Yeah.
in other places. And then our folks execute those warrants. Some law enforcement, and this is not a criticism, it's just like a prioritization of the things that they do and responsible for. They might stop someone, and if it's a low-level warrant, they might not call it in and have the person arrested. Which you kind of think any warrant, they're going to do that, but yeah, it's kind of this balancing act.
Sure, I understand.
So,
Well,
but
something
thanks for bringing that up. I mean, I mean, my observation, and I've expressed this to the chief a lot, that I think traffic enforcement is a very important part of what they do. And again, it's a balance, because you don't want to be out there doing it
Sure.
where it becomes, I don't know, overly aggressive or heavy-handed as far as a lot of citations being issued, because then we get to pushback. Well, why are you doing that there? You know, don't you have more important, you know, things to do? Then you get some of that pushback. Or why that over the speed limit on that road?
Well, have we had concerns from citizens for a specific part of Fanning Bridge Road, or? Because typically when the police is out there, they park in front of the quarry.
Yeah, that's a good spot. I don't know about particular areas. You know, I guess anywhere you can get going faster coming downhill. You know, if you're coming the opposite direction, going west, then you can really get going fast. I know some of the Windsor Forest residents have expressed, you know, interest in more enforcement on Fanning Bridge, and they've bumped it up, and then it might not be out there as frequently or as visible. So, but you know, I'll express that and talk more about kind of what the plan is. I think we're 3 down right now. We're still not. It'd be nice if we only were running like 1 vacancy. Then it gives a little more discretion for them to spend more time on, you know, doing radar.
Yeah, well, I'd like to hear from Chief to see what exactly it looks like now and what kind of efforts they can do in the future and what the data actually says right now, what Fanning Bridge looks like.
Okay.
Any other business, council? All righty, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Is there a motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second?
A motion and a second, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjourning say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we are adjourned.